Parents, what rule did your kid obey so perfectly it actually terrified you? When my son Reese was 7, I got tired of the complaining. The food is boring. This game is dumb. School is stupid. Everything was a problem. So I made a rule. You're allowed to complain about anything you want. But if you complain, you have to come up with a solution. No solution, no complaint. My wife looked at me like I'd lost my mind. He's 7, Lonnie. He doesn't know what a solution is. But I grew up in a house full of complainers. My dad complained about his boss for 30 years and never once updated his resume. My mom complained about the landlord every winter and we still froze. Complaining without action is just noise. I wasn't letting my kid inherit that. The first week, Reese complained that his sandwiches were boring. I said, solution? He thought for a second. Can I pick what goes in it? Done. He started making his own lunch. Peanut butter and banana. Same thing every day for 2 weeks. But he never complained about lunch again. I figured that was the whole lesson. Don't like something, change it. Simple. Then I caught him doing something I wasn't ready for. I walked past his room one night, and he was sitting on the floor with a composition notebook. He'd drawn a line down the middle of every page. Left side said, problem. Right side said, solution. He had filled 11 pages. The bathroom is cold in the morning. Next to, put my towel on the heater before my shower. I can't find my shoes. Next to, put them by the door every night. I just stared. Reese, what is this? He looked up like it was obvious. I'm getting ahead of my complaints. He was 7. A few weeks later, his classmate Amir showed up to school with his arm in a sling. The other kids signed his cast and moved on. But Reese noticed something nobody else did. Amir couldn't open his lunchbox, couldn't unzip his backpack, couldn't hold a paper and write at the same time. So Reese went home and opened his notebook. Amir can only use one hand, and next to it, be his other hand. For the next 6 weeks, Reese sat next to Amir every day, opened his lunch, held his papers, carried his tray. No one asked him to. When I found out, I asked why. He shrugged. He had a problem. I had 2 hands. That's a solution. He was 7. I had to leave the room. Amir's dad called me that weekend. His voice cracked 3 times in 2 minutes. He said Amir had been pretending everything was fine because he didn't want to look weak. He said Reese never once made Amir feel like he was being rescued. He just showed up quietly every day. But here's the part that still wakes me up at 2 a.m. A month later, Reese came to me with a 3-page document, written in pencil, with diagrams. He called it the Fix-It board. His idea was to put a board in the classroom where any kid could write down a problem. Not math problems, real problems. I don't have anyone to sit with at lunch. I'm too scared to ask for help. My grandma is in the hospital and I'm sad. Then other kids could write solutions underneath, or just write me too, so nobody felt alone. He'd designed the layout. He'd written rules. Rule 1, nobody makes fun of anyone's problem. Rule 2, if you can help, help. If you can't, just be kind. Rule 3, no problem is too small. The kid had built a system for something most adults can't do, asking for help without shame. I took it to his teacher, Ms. Purcell. She cried before she finished reading it. She put the board up that Friday. By Monday, it was full. A kid wrote, I don't have warm gloves, and by Wednesday, 3 pairs showed up on his desk with no name. A kid wrote, I eat alone every day, and by Thursday, she had 4 people at her table. Ms. Purcell told me she'd been teaching 22 years and never seen a classroom change that fast. The principal put Fix-It boards in every classroom by spring. The school district wrote about it in their newsletter. A local news station picked it up. The reporter asked Reese, what made you think of this? My 7-year-old looked at her and said, my dad told me I can't complain unless I have a solution. So I started fixing things. But some problems are too big to fix by yourself. So I built a place where people can fix things together. The reporter looked at me. I was crying on camera, and I didn't care. I made one rule. Stop complaining and start solving. What I expected was fewer arguments at dinner. What my son learned was that the world is full of people struggling quietly, and most of them just need someone to say your problem matters. I taught him to stop whining. He taught himself to start building.